It is Whitney Day at Saratoga on Saturday, August the 5th. Barry Spears and Gino Bacola are going to be here to talk about all 5 of the stakes races on that Saturday card. And we want to let you know about the DRF Saratoga handicapping store. Every racing day, you can get your past performances, DRF picks, clocker reports, and then on Saturdays, you can get the betting strategies. Mike Beer and David Aragona, they share selections, analysis, and then how they're playing some of the races. They give pick fives out and some multi-race wagers and then some individual race wagers as well. We're going to talk about the Saturday card and the 5 stakes races, and we're going to look at those daily racing form past performances. I'm Gino Bacola. My good friend Barry the Sniper Spears is here to talk about a big day at Saratoga. Barry, buddy, some good races to talk about. 5 in a row on Saturday. We'll have all stakes races, and it does feel like a pretty good mix. There are a couple big fields that are a little bit better, more intriguing betting races. And then we have a couple big stars on the card. Probably one of the most popular horses of the last few years in Cody's Wish. He'll see if he can continue to stretch out and maybe have bigger plans at the end of the year. He's been really good up around the mile or so. Now, can he go a little bit farther? So some intrigue and a really good mixture of like stars on the card, good betting races, and fun storylines on Saturday.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is what we live for as horse players, especially during the summer where, you have Saratoga, you have Del Mar. This is another exceptional card at Saratoga. Lots of stakes, lots of opportunities. I mean, looking at this card, it shouldn't chalk out, which is good.
No. Yeah, and that can happen some days on these big stakes cards.
Yeah.
It gets a little more formful when the really good horses they all show up. We are going to look at these races. We're going to look at the daily racing form past performances. We encourage you, if you want to look at the same past performances we are, you can get those for free with DRF Bets. Sign up for DRF Bets. Super easy, simple process. Use that promo code WINNING. Right off the bat, they're going to slap you with a $10 free bet once you register. And then they'll give you a deposit match bonus all the way up to $250. So if you deposit $250, they'll match that. All of a sudden, you've got $510 right off the bat. They give you 10 free formulator cards. So you can use one card for each track. And then every time you bet 50, you'll get credit for another card. So if you're betting the races, and if you're doing it through DRF Bets, you'll be able to stack up all sorts of credits for all those Saratoga, all those Del Mar cards you want to play throughout the summer. Barry and I are going to play on Saturday, and we're going to start in race number 6, looking at these formulator past performances. Barry, we have a 5.5 furlong turf sprint. You love your turf sprints. And this one is fun because we have horses become, honestly, the best turf sprinter right now. The 6-year-old mare, Caravel, she's beaten the boys. She was your Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint winner last year. She's won 5 in a row. She's a 15-time winner, and she's a horse that we all just keep trying to beat each and every time because I will say, as impressive as she looks, there are a couple races where like 1 or 2 of the other speed horses didn't go. She kind of got the benefit of trips. Yeah, so this has happened a couple times. So that's why we've tried.
Breeders' Cup was one of them.
Absolutely. And in this race, while it's not necessarily the deepest field in the world, she will have other speed that she'll have to deal with in here. To the outside, you've got No Balls, who was the turf sprint winner on May 6th at Churchill, earned a 102 buyer that day. He's really, really fast. He's going to make her work. And I could see maybe 1 or 2 others in here also showing speed, like the 2, pretty quick, came from off the pace last time out. He's not as classy as some of the others in here, but he could be a nuisance and at least make things kind of difficult there. So there could be 3, I don't know, maybe even Cogburn. I don't know if he's quite as fast, but I don't think she's getting an easy lead in here.
I hope not. I mean, if she does, she's gonna lap this field easily. You got a horse like No Balls who won wire to wire recently at Indiana Downs.
And he doesn't want to sit.
No, right? He definitely doesn't want to sit.
There are some horses you can understand where, okay, they got some speed, but they can also sit. And so sometimes they try to take back. But a horse like this, if he doesn't go, he's got no chance.
Right. And that's why I think this is another good time to
try to
play against Caravel. Yeah, because I think she's going to have a lot more adversity to deal with than she has in other races recently. although this field isn't as strong as some of the other ones,
No.
more speed that can really kind of go at her and give her a little bit of tough time, which to me might be just enough to get her beat.
And that's how, playing this race, now we look at who is going to be the horse to capitalize on that, right? Or who are the horses that can take advantage if no balls, if her. I'm leaving the horse like the 2 out because I think that horse could be part of the pace too. So
Right.
I'm
Get
yeah,
cooked up
and get
early
cooked up
and
with them early. So those horses aren't like, if I'm trying to beat Caravel, it's not with some other speed horse. I'm sort of gravitating to one, Barry, and it's the 5, Grooms All Business, who I
yes,
think
that's the one.
could get the trip in here, right? It just feels like
Yeah.
when you have races and you can look at some horses, you can eliminate horses like the one Thin White Duke from the rail. He's going to have to improve in here too. I just need to see him. I need to see a bigger effort from him. We mentioned the 2, and I'm not quite sure. Cogburn's 2 races on the turf are fine, but this is definitely a step up. Like, he may be able to get a nice off the pace trip. I don't really have a knock on him if people like him at a price. But the one that I sort of gravitated to was Grooms All Business. His last 2 races have both been really good. And now his form as a 4-year-old makes sense. You start diving into his form last year, like, he hasn't done a whole lot wrong in his career.
No, he's good. I mean, the thing that caught my eyes is basically his running
The
style and the
trip he's going to
trip that
get.
he's going to get in this race. He's probably going to get really good position in behind these front runners, and it's just a matter of him being fast enough to finish it off. I think he might be the one that's ripe for this upset in this race, only
Yep.
because he has some stakes experience,
Yep.
though
And the
albeit
races are come
minor
back live.
stakes. Right,
Yeah,
but
so they're not as good as the Caravel races, but you dive into them, and the horse who he beat last time, Our Shot, came right back and won right here at Saratoga, earned a 95 buyer, and Our Shot has won 3 of the last 4 races and has gotten up there with the speed figures a couple times. This is
yeah,
not right. He's not
I
bad.
mean, it just seems
Algoon,
like like this horse Grooms All Business is on the upswing, gets a field and a setup that's ripe for another kind
it's
of quote unquote perfect trip. I
ex-
mean, as far as the class goes, you kind of can overlook some of the what looks like lesser races because there really aren't that many
no
good races at this distance. I mean,
turf
there's not like
sprinting.
a whole bunch of grade 1s or grade
No,
2s or anything
not at
like
all.
that.
The
So
listed stakes and the
you kind
graded
of got to
stakes.
get them where you can.
He lost twice to a horse named That's Right, who's just a really fast horse, right? So
Yes.
in these races where That's Right catches a field where there's not much other speed, he's going to win. And that's not what's helpful for Grooms All Business. So it feels like what you were saying. Some races, there's a horse that feels like they're peaking, they're going to get the trip. Like, he just feels like the bet in this race. Like,
Yes,
if,
he
if he's
definitely does.
over 5-1, he feels like he's the bet in here
He's
to
the
me.
one. Yep.
Like,
I,
and that doesn't mean he's an automatic winner, and he could just run poorly, but the way he's improving, he's peaking, he's a 4-year-old, so you can see him continuing to ascend. You're not really worried about any sort of a bounce because he had a big figure last time out, but he had some figures that were already getting there towards the end of last year, right? And now we're just seeing him progress a little bit. The races have come back strong. The May 4th race, he ran second off the bench to a horse named Running with Scissors, who's like a really tough, old,
tough.
hard-knocking horse. And that was his first start in 6 months. So he's a little bit short that day. Last year, he's just solid. You can eliminate his race going long, and now you're left with a string of 8 in the money finishes and 2 fourth and a fourth and a fifth. Like, in good races with next out winners. He's the horse for me in here. This race kicks off a pick 4 too. I think there's a 6, 7, 8, 9 pick 4, kind of a middle one that gets some of those stakes races right before leading. Because I think it's a fun race to try to swing against her again too. I couldn't find anyone else that was just as intriguing. Like, I don't
See,
know
I
what
did. I
who is
did. I
who is the other one.
I I thought the 8 was
That's the wild
really
card, because I was
fun.
just going to
Yeah.
ask you about her or him, Remuda.
The 8, and then I like Thin White Duke
A little
at
more,
a big price because I think that horse is just going to come running and maybe fill out exotics third, fourth
sure.
at a big price. But Remuda, is interesting because this is kind of the horse on the upswing. You know,
Hmm.
a lightly raced 4-year-old that came off the bench after that run in April. You know, only has 3 starts this year, but
And we have
uh,
no idea who she beat or who he beat or how good he is. But I do like that now he showed he can
I
sit off a little bit. That
right,
was
and
key.
that was the key to me too. You know, especially being from the outside, you don't want to try to force the issue from way out there unless you're just faster than the others. And I don't think this horse is. And sitting will probably get this horse a better trip. You know,
And I like
whether
Pratt in this type of situation with the speed. Like we talk about certain riders and some of their strengths. I think this is one of his major strength when he can get a horse that's got some speed but can also sit. He just seems to know the way the pace is shaping up and when to push the button.
right, he's a really good judge of pace, whether it's going long or going short. He's really good at timing that. You
It's a
know,
lot
and
more
I'm
important in Southern California, right? And
it
that's what
is
happens when you're out here
absolutely
as a top rider. You sort of have to be good at that or else you're not going to get those mounts anymore. So,
right.
you know, he was someone who right away we could see he was very aggressive. He took that route a lot of times, and I just like I trust his decision making when he sometimes you're thinking, oh man, he's probably going to be sitting third or fourth in this race, and then he's on the lead, and
Yeah,
you're like, oh, I don't know, but you know, he usually makes the right call. Like it's usually because someone broke a little slow and someone wasn't alert, and then he goes on with it. But I really like him in this in this type of scenario. So I have no problem throwing that
yeah.
horse in any type of exotics underneath and just kind of playing against the speed horses and looking for the horses who are going to sit here.
Yeah, most of the time, you know, Pratt reminds me of Johnny V in this way is that he's going to get his horse in the right spot to where the horse has to do the work from there. And I think he's going to do that here. And if the horse kicks on, he'll be right there, you know. And if he doesn't, you'll see that too. But this horse at a decent price, because I think he's going to float up a little higher than the 10-1 morning line. I think
It's
he's worth a second look.
I had to just mention this because we were talking about speed horses and something that you point out when we're on here, like
Oh
Irad,
boy.
who wins a ton of races, you know, but David Aragona, who is one of the sharper out there handicappers, makes the morning line for New York. He tweeted a minute ago. Irad does, and Barry and I are recording this on Thursday, so the Saratoga races are still going right now. I said Irad does a lot of things well, but riding speed horses on the dirt isn't one of them.
I mean, I say this all the time, and it's funny that people don't pick up on it. And I think a lot of it's hidden because he's on so many good horses that the mistakes he makes on others, he still wins, and it doesn't really look like anything. But if you really scrutinize it and you take a look, it's definitely not his strong suit is riding on the lead on dirt.
No, that was just something to mention as
Yeah.
we finish up with the sixth race on Saturday and we move into the Lure race number 7. This is a mile and a 16th race on the turf course. So this is one for horses who have not won a graded stakes so far this year. So you can get some really good horses in here who are like dropping out of graded stakes races, graded stakes winners. Like Speaking Scout is a grade 1 winner. You have some like really nice horses in here. The one that's a little intriguing to me, Barry, that I'm going to throw in if I was playing a pick 4 or a pick 5 at a bit of a price is the 9 Midday Image, who is going to
That's my guy.
stretch. There we go. Right. He's going to stretch back out now go to longer distances. He's been successful going longer, and he's been sort of knocking on the door at the turf sprint level recently, closing. He's been really good for Jacobson in the last 4 starts, but he kind of reminds me of what will happen in a harness race. Like he was closing in his last couple, and he's going to get, I think he's going to get aggressive from the outside in here. And I think he's the quickest and has an opportunity versions of this race where he clears the field and just goes on with it. He can also sit if he has to from the outside, like we've seen. But I think here stretching out, they go on with it with him. I'm definitely using Midday Image in the mix.
Yeah, you kind of have to, right?
Yeah.
You know, just off his versatility, he's actually in pretty real good form at present. Um, that he kind of he faded away last year towards the end of the year or end of his campaign, and He's really bounced back for that new barn. And, full disclosure, I have a picture of this horse on my wall in my office.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think he merits a really good shot in here. These aren't like the greatest horses you'll ever want to
Well, they're
see.
they're
Um,
horses who haven't won a graded stakes this year, right? They're horses who are good, but they're just not in the best of all form right now. They're either a cut below graded stakes races, graded stakes types, and he kind of fits pretty well in here just from a fun horse. His best races absolutely fit. Like his race
oh
here going a
yeah.
mile and a 16th at Gulfstream last year where he gets the lead and he goes on and wins by 5. Like that race wins this race
You
at a
know,
big
I
price.
I, I was really kind of taken back when he started sprinting and winning races, and I was like, wow, this horse could sprint
Yeah.
like that.
He's
Why weren't they
versatile.
doing that before? I almost called his old trainer and was like, Louis, what? Why weren't you sprinting this horse? He looks like like he can't lose sprinting at Belmont. But yeah, I mean, he has races to go to. I think 12-1 was a little high on the morning line because I think he merits a little better chance than that, and I think the bettors will think so too. But man, this is a really good spot for this horse. With not much going on, I can, making some waves and winning this race.
Let's talk about some others in here who are just in good form, who fit, who make a lot of sense. So, Speaking Scout is a horse who's been facing graded stakes company just repeatedly, and now he'll get a little bit of a class drop. If you look at some of the races he's coming out of, he was behind Modern Games and Up to the Mark, and then he's behind Emmanuel in the dinner party, and he's only beaten 3/4 of a length that day, and he comes back. Emmanuel comes back to win, and then he's finishing behind Catnip, and Catnip comes back to run second in the United Nations next time out. So he's coming out of some pretty good races. Speaking Scout, he's a grade 1 winner. He's sort of like, there's 2 or 3 horses like this where they fit. They're sort of a measuring stick. They're probably not the sexiest to bet from a wagering standpoint, but he's like one of the horses to beat in here. If he gets his trip and runs a good race, like his ceiling is probably up there with most in this field.
Yeah, I just don't know where that effort is going to come from.
And he's
I
not
mean,
that
this horse
fast
is
anymore either. He's not like anymore, but he's just not that fast overall, right? He needs a little bit
right,
of help in
exactly,
front
and
too.
and that's the thing. It seems like he's kind of lost his step, or r- yeah, right, and I think that's problematic. Because obviously this horse has been kind of running against horses he probably was a little overmatched. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, he's a grade 1 winner, but I think the elements were really right that day
And
he
it wasn't
won.
that
I
strong of a
think
field.
this level
Yeah.
that he's in,
It's perfect.
right. I think the level he's at now is perfect for him. And I have a hard time with horses like this that kind of run over their heads, get to the spot that they want, and it seems like they kind of underachieve.
Well, they might just run the
Even
same
that,
sort of race, right? Like
yes. And
second or
that's what it
third.
feels like here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he won't get. I would want a little more speed in here. I think from him.
Mm.
I have him like fourth. That's how I plugged him in this spot, just depending on how I end up playing this race. From a multi exotic standpoint. I think the 2 that are of the shorter price horses, of the horses who I think will take money, the ones that I'm fine with are probably for me the 2 to the inside. Because of the way we think the race may shape up.
Sure.
Smoke and Tea should get a pretty good trip in here. I think he'll be sitting in a nice spot. He wasn't far behind Up to the Mark a few starts back when Up to the Mark was in that, allowance race. And I think he's going to get a nice trip. Portfolio Company's also a horse who's just in good form. He was probably facing a little bit better, and now he kind of sits a nice trip from the inside. I think I'm a little against the 3, Dakota Gold, who's coming out of the New York bred races. Those are sort of my take on the inside horses. What's your take on some of these major players down here towards the rail?
Um, I'll start it like this. My notes for this race, the first thing I say is horses that might get bet are vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah, they
And
all are. You're right.
you
They
know
do all
how
look like it.
how I can't have any confidence in the one per se because every time this horse kind of steps up in class, he doesn't run that well. I think he's probably like one of those horses that you would
His wins
equate
are
to.
soft. That's
uh,
the problem too. Like
exactly.
I think he'll get a good trip from the inside saving ground, but it's really hard to be impressed by the victories. Like the speed figures come back well, but they're kind of easy wins in 6-horse fields.
Exactly.
That
He's a 4A player. That's what I call him. Like,
yeah,
he's not quite good enough for the majors, but he's not
he's better than AAA.
he's better than
Yeah,
AAA. So he's a
yeah.
4A. That's what I think about that one. So he's kind of vulnerable. Smoking T, same sort of deal. It's like, there's not much to bite into here because the horse kind of runs well, wins occasionally, but not somebody you can count on. And Dakota Gold, it kind of falls in the same territory where this horse runs against statebreds. He looks like he's golden. Open company, not so much. And their running styles here kind of, to me, kind of get lost in the shuffle because they all figure the same trip.
So the 3 inside horses, Barry's not really high on any of them. Yeah, I'm not high on Dakota Gold. I'm playing it 9 as my top play, and then I had the next tier of horses as 1, 2, and 5 that were like, the horses that I think are all that measuring stick that I don't love, but will probably be in the mix. Who else? Anyone stand out to you, or anyone else that you like at a price that you're intrigued by?
Yes.
Give
The
it to us.
6, the foreign
That's
horse.
1. There we go.
Yeah, I don't even know how to say that name. I'm terrible with names. It's horrible. I got to start getting better at that.
I have
Yeah.
no clue on this one.
But yeah, I like the fact that this horse came back running at the Curragh off of a pretty decent layoff. Ships over here. This field isn't that tough. I'm
Pattern is
gathering,
nice.
looking like this horse is probably well meant.
Yeah.
If you get anywhere near 12-1, I'm going to push all in. Even though I do like Midday Image, I think this horse has probably been running with better company and gets a pretty good setup here. They're not going to be speedy types typically. Oisin Murphy is definitely one of the better jockeys over in Europe. So, I have it almost confidence. He might get dismissed on the board. He might not. If in case he does, I want to be
You're
there.
gonna use him. They sent in they sent in Aspen Grove to win the Belmont Oaks, and Aspen Grove actually scratched out of the Saratoga Oaks to run against Grade 1 company in the Saratoga Derby. They thought smaller field and taking a shot for Grade 1. Let's go there instead. So Barry throws in the 6 here in the Lure, the stakes race for horses who have not won a graded stakes so far this year. Let's turn the page to Grade 1s. We've got 3 of them in a row, starting with the Grade 1 test in race number 8. You have the Kentucky Oaks winner, Pretty Mischievous, who draws the rail. She's just in excellent form. She's done so little wrong in her career. Overall, very nice. Again, though, in a race like this, you feel like the rail going 7 furlongs, probably not the best spot to be in a race where there's a good amount of speed. I'm not sure if she's going to be up there on the lead with the quickest. So maybe they just want to take back and sit. But then you sort of put yourself in that position where you got to roll the dice and you got to sort of hope or angle around. And then from the outside, there should be a good amount of speed in your Barry with
great amount of speed.
You got Maple Leaf Mel, who's never been headed and never been beat. And then you've got Money's Gold, who's very, very fast. Now she's going to cut back. Those two are right next door to each other. They should be flying. Others in here, Jersey Pearl can sit. She showed speed. I think it was more from the rail last time out. She should be no problem sitting, but clearly Unhinged is also really, really fast too. Wouldn't be shocking to see this filly right up in the mix. So there could be 3, possibly 4 in here going really, really quick.
That's what I'm hoping for, and that sets it up for the possibilities. I know Dorth Vader.
Are you going back to your gal? You got to go back to your gal. I am,
because
she's going to get the trip.
I thought she was better. I thought she's better around 1 turn than she was around 2. I really don't know where that effort came from in the Acorn. I mean, she ran great that day. I just didn't see it happening.
Yeah, it was. And now you think cutting back will just really help her with the trip she's going to get, because if we look at her and Pretty Mischievous, and we've seen that Pretty Mischievous has gotten the better of her a couple times, well, now we can at least say So Pretty Mischievous is the 6, Darth Vader is the 1. What we can at least say here is that the posts are flipped. Like maybe because she's drawn more to the outside, she can sit a little bit more in the clear, and there is a possibility of Pretty Mischievous having some trouble down on the rail. If that's how you're looking at a race sometimes, and you're saying, how can the horse who was defeated make up ground on the one that beat him? Is there something that is different in this race? Well, there didn't need to be that much because they weren't separated by a whole lot, but there is
Yeah, I
something
mean,
different now.
no,
It's a good spot.
one turn.
Darth Vader's down on the
It's
rail.
shorter.
Yeah. In this race we're watching, and then in the on the outside, we're gonna see Pretty Mischievous start to loom up. Pretty Mischievous is the 6 in here, so she's sitting on the outside, and she's gonna move into contention. Money's Gold is the horse leading this race, so lots of familiar horses in the race we're watching, Barry, that are gonna show up in the test. But I knew as soon as I saw this race, initially I was like, oh, Barry's horse, Darth Vader. And then I handicapped it, and I was like, this is the horse that he's got to like, because it feels like she's going to get the trip cutting back. She ran a great race last time out. This was her first start for Weaver also. So maybe it can just improve a little bit again for the newborn. Like, this is a good effort. I think we've had a little connection issue with the man, Barry the Sniper Spears. We'll try to get him back here in just a moment as we finish watching Darth Vader and Pretty Mischievous down to the wire in a tight finish. And that was in the grade 1. That was in the grade 1 Acorn. I was back on June the 9th. So there's been plenty of time since then for those to recover. And I think they're the horses to beat in this race. I think with the trips that project, again, these two will be right there. I'm not quite as high on Money's Gold. I need to see a little bit more from her. Maple Leaf Mel, absolutely tons of ability, but she's going to have to prove it. And she's going to have to show that she can deal with some other pace. She's going to be going a little bit longer as well. So, we'll go Darth Vader sitting the trip in this one. Yeah, clearly Unhinged is kind of a wild card, right? What's going to happen with this filly? She's quick. I just don't know how well the race is going to shape up with her with all that speed to the outside. That's what scares me a little bit with her speed. So the man, Barry's computer crashed. We'll see if we can get him back in a moment. Let's get to the final 2 races in this 5 stakes race Saturday over at Saratoga. So I went 6-1 there. I think Darth Vader is the horse to play. If you go kind of one more look through Darth Vader before we move along, Barry would endorse her as well here. She's been really honest. She has a great running style where she puts herself right in the race, and then she's in it throughout, but she can finish. She's been right there with Pretty Mischievous. You should get a better price and possibly a better trip with the draw. Let's move to race number 9. It is the Saratoga Derby. In this race, I think the 2 could be long gone. I really don't know how good he is overall. This was a horse who debuted at Monmouth, but in his second start, he went over to Belmont Park. He sat nicely, really close, and just crushed. Easy win. I think if he is aggressively handled by Pratt, I feel like he's faster than Mondego. And there's just nobody else in here that's that fast. So 2 all over the place for me. Farbridge and Webslinger, they're the 2 I think that will come running if there is pace. But that's what's tough, is that on paper, I don't know how fast they're going to be going early on. So, Farbridge and Webslinger could be a little compromised by what, could be a slow pace shape. Farbridge seems a little more tactical. I just can't get that race out of my head. The May 6th race at Churchill. That one will live with me forever. The American Turf. That was a bad beat for yours truly on that one. But I'm going to try to see if program trading can steal this race. It happens in so many of these grass races in New York where everybody takes back. One horse gets out there and they just lope around. Program trading for me on the front end. I actually thought the 3 was a little intriguing, this filly. Like, she's not as good as some of them in here. But I might throw her in a pick 4 or pick 5. They picked this race instead of the Oaks. We got the Sniper back. My man, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty and a little bit of an outage. A glitch. No worries, but we finished up talking about Darth Vader and the trip that she will likely get. And it just, another one of those in the test where it feels like right horse, right time, right trip, probably going to be the right price. Like, all those things come together, I think, make her feel like a good use in that race.
Yeah, we like to be Johnny on the spot, as they say. And hopefully we are with Darth Vader. I kind of like Interpolate too. At a price.
Total wild card, right? I liked her last time, and it was too bad. One of those that's too bad to believe. She kind of bobbled, right? She's better than that. She bobbled. She just didn't have a chance with the type of trip where she's way out of it, and there was nobody pushing Maple Leaf Mel. So if they go quick, which we're thinking at least a couple to the outside, maybe Interpolate gets that trip as well.
Yeah, I think that, that last race kind of sets her up for this one. It wasn't the greatest of starts. Clearly needed the race. I can see that one making a big improvement.
Let's get to the Saratoga Derby, Barry. I kind of threw my thoughts out there a minute ago. I mentioned how we see so many of these races in New York going long on the grass where nobody goes to the lead. and the 2 might be the horse, if there is one, that could get out front and steal it with Pratt. He's aggressive. I think they look around and don't feel like they're probably as good as some of the other horses. You don't want to be closing with them. You want to get out front. And, this is a Chad Brown that debuted at Monmouth and wasn't even favored first time out of the box. So did step up when coming over to Belmont. And again, I don't know how good he is, but there's not that much early speed in here. Mondigo's not really fast. He's sort of gotten the lead in slower races. I think if the 2 is aggressively handled, it could be his. I wasn't able to really find that big of the prices in here. How did you see this race? Talk to us about this one.
I thought this was a little wide open. I'm not really enthusiastic about the stateside horses.
So you're looking for the more wild cards?
Yes, absolutely. I think, if you look at this race and you start with the Farn horses and you go to Aspen Grove, you look at his body of work, it's not that great. Comes over here and wins fairly easily. And probably, he was 15-1. People kind of dismissed him, and his body of work isn't as good as, let's say, the 8 Line of War, who I like.
Yeah.
And this horse is 8-1 on the morning line. Rates like he's going to sit a really good trip, kind of mid-pack, make a good run. I don't see why this horse cannot win this race. If we get an 8-1, I kind of have to play this horse in comparison to the others.
War. It's funny because of the horses that we know the most of, like Farbridge and Webslinger are the ones. And I don't know why with both of them, I feel like it's not, maybe they're not going to get the trip, or if they're going to be closing with some of these other deeper horses too. I'm concerned. Like, I'm not sure if either one of them win. Like, I think they'll run well and be in the mix and finish like second or third. That's sort of why I went to I'm looking for someone else to stretch this field out. That's sort of why I landed on the 2, because I think there could end up being a lot of horses that just take back, and the 2 could just, let them run here. But I definitely am going to use the 3. The filly, I think it is funny because she's not, again, she was 15-1. She was dismissed, but she did face some really nice company overseas before coming over here.
Oh yeah, and definitely.
Like, she's sort of got, and what's nice is she's got the benefit of the first race off the plane too, right? She's sort of shaking the rust off a little bit here.
Exactly.
So Yeah, I'm using her in the mix for sure. Twos for me. Barry mentions the 8, whose form was better than the 3s, and was facing boys. This was a filly who was facing fillies, and now comes over and is going to be stepping up and facing the boys in this race. Is the 3. Lion of War should offer you really fair value. Anyone else in here you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're on the right path with program trading, because I can't really think that Mondigo is going to wire this field, because I don't think program trading is going to let him get too far. But one thing I will say about Chad Brown horses, typically they don't really run up front on the lead often. Like he
No.
has a couple that do, but most of them like to sit
Sit.
and make a run.
Yeah.
And that kind of concerns me here, because I'm not really sure what they're going to try to do
I
as
hope
far
they
as
don't, right? I hope he gets aggressive. Yeah.
right. You want him to go,
Yeah.
yeah,
Just
because
get in
there's not
front of the
much
one.
speed here. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, I really don't know what they're going to try to do. Are they going to just let Mondigo go and sit right behind him, or flank that horse? It's definitely possible. I definitely want this horse up front, or forwardly placed. But I mean, this is a tough spot, and I'm not really too sure what they're going to try to do.
Let's move to the next grade 1. It is the Whitney. We're going to finish up with the feature race. So we don't have the biggest field in the world, but it's intriguing because you have Cody's Wish, who is one of the best, if not the best horse, older horse in training right now in the US, and he's never been this far. We got to see if he can keep going. There's nothing that we've seen in his races that make it seem like he wouldn't. Like the way he won
Right.
his last race was extremely impressive, and he's just going from a mile to a mile and an eighth. We're not talking about going to a mile and a half in here either. But when you do have a horse who's 1-2 on the morning line and they haven't proven something, it's definitely got to be a talking point, because he has to show us he can do this. If he does, all of a sudden, boom, he puts himself right there for Breeders' Cup Classic, hands down the horse to beat. Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winner last year, super impressive in that race. What kind of is, I think, for me, a little more frustrating about this race is I wish there was 1 or 2 really proven classic distance horses in here,
Right.
that I would like to take a shot against him, because then I might feel like, okay, that horse is at least a mile and an eighth or a mile and a quarter type horse that we know will be fit late. And I don't know if there's that horse in here.
No, there really isn't. You're right. I
and
mean,
that's
Cody's Wish is the only
it's a
thing that can
great
get
spot
Cody's
for him.
Wish. Yes,
B
because
is
it's
him.
a small field, short. Short field will help that horse overcome any kind of early
Trouble.
pace
Yeah.
sort of issues that he might have. But the only thing that can get Cody's Wish beat here is the distance.
Yeah.
I don't think the talent in this race is better than he is. I
No.
mean, he's proven himself to be a beast. I think the only thing that can get that horse beat is the distance. And I think a horse like Charge It merits a really long look, because this horse likes to go far, and he's pretty fast doing it. I
That's the
just don't
key
want him
is
to get into a speed duel with Giant Game,
that's the
or
key, right?
even around him. He
Yeah.
could sit off of him and swallow that horse up. Although Giant Game ran big last time, I just don't think he's that caliber.
So
And White Barrio hasn't passed a horse of this caliber ever. So
here's the thing. I don't think White Barrio wants to go this far, right? I think his best races are at about a mile, like 7 to a mile is where he's best.
Yeah.
If you're going to play a horse, I don't have a problem if somebody wants to play him in this race, only because he might just sit a good trip. And like, if we're saying Cody's Wish isn't really proven at a mile and an eighth either. And if there are versions of this race where Giant Game and Charge It push each other and make like difficult, and like, look at Charge It, for example, too. He's got 4 rivals in this race that have beat him multiple times, 3 of them. So he's got to improve on Cody's Wish, Zandon, White Barrio, Last Samurai have all beat him. Zandon the last 2 times, White Barrio the last 2 times have all gotten the better of him. If he's like cruising and he just sits right behind Giant Game, he may win the race easy.
Right.
Right.
He'll get a good run, without
That
expending too much effort early, and it's just a sprint from the top of the stretch to the wire. And
I don't
it
think he's that much of a fighter though.
no,
Right? Like,
he's
because he
definitely not.
doesn't,
He gets headed, he
right. And
stops.
then he's just done. Like all these horses that are like a little classy pass him. So he really does need that ideal trip. And you were sort of mapping it out perfectly because if he does sit, great. If him and Giant Game push each other a little bit, that's sort of
Curtains.
why I'm okay only in this race. Like I wouldn't use White Barrio in the classic or in distance races moving forward. I don't really think he's that type of a horse. But if I eliminate the rest of the field, like I don't like the one. I just don't like Zandon very much. I think
No, because
he is what he is.
he's a
Right?
runner up.
He's a
He's a
second,
runner up.
third. Like he's always going to be in the mix. But I'm not intrigued by betting him to win at 4-1 or so. Like I didn't see anything that makes me think he's way better than Cody's Wish. I don't even know
Has
how far he really wants to go either, right? Like he might
hasn't
be a
won in a
mile.
year either, over
I
a
know.
year.
So
So
not for me. If the 2-3 battle, I think the 4 is a little below. Like I don't really have a problem with the 4 overall, but maybe a little below and not in the best of form. I could see White Barrio maybe second time for this barn, just falling into a good spot. Had a little trouble last time out. I'm probably going to throw him in with Cody's Wish as my other horse to use with him. Sounds like you've got Charge It as the horse you think could beat him if he gets the right type of trip.
yeah, I mean, Last Samurai had a 3-race stretch at Oaklawn that
That were
was
great.
unmatched. But before and after that, it hasn't been any good.
Yeah.
I can't really rely on that horse. Although he could pick up pieces and in a 6-horse
Hit the
field
board,
like this,
sure.
right? So you kind of have to merit him as a good exacta play here.
Yeah.
Even though not on the win end, I know Zandon likes to run second an awful lot. But given the price of the 4 versus what the 1's going to be, a Cody's Wish Last Samurai exacta seems really, really good here.
Barry's going to do the old Dave Weaver ice cold.
Ice cold.
Try to pound
Yes.
the old 6-4, possibly in the Whitney, the feature on Saturday over at Saratoga. One of 5 stakes races on the cards that'll go right in a row 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Don't forget, you can get these past performances for free over at DRF Bets when you sign up. They'll put 10 in your account right away. Then every time you bet another 50, you'll get 50. You also have everything you need at the Saratoga handicapping store, including those betting strategies for Saturday. Some help from Mike Beer and David Aragona. Barry, my man, tell the folks out there about going in circles, about Big Mondays, and anything else that you've got going on.
Yeah, not much. Kind of enjoying the races in Saratoga and Del Mar right now. Going in circles. Our podcast, Big Monday shows every Monday. Usually comes out on Tuesdays. You can catch it. It's usually one of the longer kind of podcast. So we do it only once a week. But yeah, I'll be around always and forever. So, if you have any questions, concerns,
Want to talk some racing?
Yeah, I'm here for it all the
Want to
time
talk
on
about
Twitter.
Barry's knee injury in China that knocked out his playing career and basketball dreams and what could have been for the sniper, anything at all. You're always going to find Barry here with me for the next few weeks. Throughout the summer, we'll pick different tracks, whichever has big races each weekend. Barry will join me. We'll do some more Del Mar. We'll do some Woodbine. They've got Kings Plate coming up in a few weeks. So we'll have a lot of fun always diving into those daily racing form past performances. We're in the no chalk zone here. Our goal is to try to help you beat some of these vulnerable favorites and find some value anywhere you can. Always a pleasure talking to you, buddy. Thanks so much for your time. Good luck to you this weekend. Everyone, make sure to give Barry a follow there on I'm still calling it Twitter.
The Twitter machine.
Yeah, it's not X.
It's still
X.
Twitter.
Throw up the X. No, it's Twitter. And we will talk some more racing with you again next week. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, folks. And good luck this weekend at Saratoga.